Some people are good at things, some are brilliant. But in the frozen silence of the Finnish winter there emerged a legend whose reputation would chill the blood of even the bravest soldiers. Simo Häyhä became a name spoken in hushed tones, a ghostly presence haunting the snowfields. His legend grew not from grand speeches or visible heroics, but from the invisible terror he inspired, an unseen force always lurking, always waiting. The Soviets called him Belaya Smrt, the White Death. The name itself conjured images of an elemental force as relentless and merciless as the Arctic winter. It was a reputation built on more than just skill. It was built on the psychological warfare of never knowing where danger might be hiding. Häyhä's battleground was a world of extremes. Temperatures plunged to -40 degrees Celsius, where the mere act of breathing could betray a position. The snow muffled every sound, turning the landscape into a vast, echoing chamber of uncertainty. In this environment every detail mattered. Häyhä mastered the art of blending into the landscape, using the snow itself as both shield and camouflage. He would pack the snow in front of his firing position to prevent the muzzle blast from disturbing the powder, and even place snow in his mouth to hide the vapour of his breath. He dug shallow trenches, barely deep enough to conceal a prone figure, and waited for hours in absolute stillness. The cold was a constant adversary, threatening to numb fingers and cloud judgment, but Häyhä turned it into an ally, knowing that the enemy would be less prepared for the relentless freeze. The psychological impact was profound. Soviet soldiers advanced through the blinding snow, never knowing if the next step would be their last. The silence was broken only by the sudden, sharp crack of a rifle echoing across the frozen expanse, then nothing but the wind. The fear of the unseen, the knowledge that a single mistake could mean instant death, wore down even the most disciplined troops. Häyhä's presence was felt everywhere and nowhere, a constant reminder that the snow itself could be deadly. His tactics were simple, yet devastatingly effective. He relied on patience, precision, and an intimate understanding of the terrain. He used the environment to mask his movements, choosing firing positions that offered both concealment and a clear line of sight. The snow was both his armour and his weapon. It absorbed sound, hid his tracks, and provided endless opportunities for ambush. The Soviets searched for him relentlessly, but the landscape itself seemed to conspire in his favour, swallowing up all traces of his presence. The numbers attributed to Häyhä are staggering, but his true legacy lies in the terror he inspired. He became a symbol of resistance, a living embodiment of the Finnish concept of sisu, unyielding determination in the face of overwhelming odds. In the end, Simo Häyhä was more than just a sniper. He was the spirit of the winter itself, silent, patient, and utterly lethal. His legend endures, not just in the numbers, but in the way he turned the harshest environment on Earth into his greatest ally, and the snow into a weapon of fear. The most dangerous man in the snow was never truly seen, only felt in the icy breath of the wind and the unbroken silence of the winter woods. Before he was the White Death, Simo Häyhä was just a farmer. Born in 1905 in a small town near the Russian border, his world was one of forests, fields, and long, dark winters. This wasn't a man raised in a military academy or groomed for combat from birth. He was a hunter and a forester. His days were spent working the land and navigating the dense Finnish wilderness. This upbringing, it turns out, was the perfect training ground for what was to come. He learned to read the landscape, to move silently through the trees, and to endure the brutal cold that would become his greatest ally. He was small, only about 5'3", which in the army might be a disadvantage. But in the forest it made him harder to see. His first real taste of formal shooting came when he joined the Finnish Civil Guard at 17. This wasn't the regular army, it was more like a local militia, a place for citizens to learn how to defend their communities. It was here that people started to notice that young Simo was a bit of a prodigy with a rifle. He wasn't just good, He was exceptional. He entered shooting competitions and, to no one's surprise, he started winning them. His home was filled with trophies from these events. He became a certified master marksman, a title that sounds impressive but doesn't even begin to cover the level of his skill. He could hit a target from distances that other people needed a telescope to even see. The secret to his success wasn't some mystical gift, it was practice. Endless, obsessive practice. He knew his rifle inside and out. His personal weapon was a Sako M28-30, a Finnish variant of the Russian Mosin Nagant rifle. He knew every screw, every spring, every tiny imperfection. He cleaned it daily, treating it not just as a tool, but as an extension of his own body. This rifle wasn't a fancy piece of kit. It was a standard-issue bolt-action rifle. But in his hands it was as precise as a surgeon's scalpel. His friends gave him the nickname Simuna, which translates to Sim Egg, a playful jab that hardly hinted at the fearsome reputation he would later earn. This pre-war experience was crucial. When the call to arms came, Simo Häyhä wasn't a raw recruit who needed to be taught how to shoot. He was already a master of his craft. He understood ballistics, windage, and the subtle art of hitting a moving target in difficult conditions. His life as a hunter had taught him patience and observation. His time in the Civil Guard had honed his raw talent into disciplined, repeatable accuracy. He was the perfect soldier for the war that was about to erupt, a conflict that would be fought not on open battlefields but in the dense, snow-covered forests he called home. He was a product of his environment, perfectly adapted to thrive where others would perish. Simo's early life was a blend of hard work and survival, a daily routine that built his resilience and sharpened his instincts. The harsh Finnish winters were not just a backdrop, but a crucible that forged his endurance. Tracking animals through the snow taught him to be patient, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Setting traps required meticulous attention to detail, a skill that would later translate to his marksmanship. Maintaining his hunting gear was a daily ritual, instilling a sense of discipline and care that extended to his rifle. Practicing his shooting in the quiet of the forest, he honed his aim to perfection. Moving stealthily through the woods, he learned the art of camouflage. Becoming one with his surroundings, his keen observation skills allowed him to detect the slightest movement, a crucial ability for a sniper. Braving the elements, he built a mental and physical toughness that would serve him well in combat. These experiences shaped him, turning a simple farmer into a master marksman, ready for the challenges that lay ahead. In November 1939, the world watched as a storm gathered on the edge of Europe. The land was silent, blanketed in snow, but beneath that stillness tension simmered. The Soviet Union, vast and powerful, cast its gaze upon the small, frostbitten nation of Finland. Stalin's ambitions were clear. He wanted a buffer, a shield of territory to protect Leningrad from any future threat. The borderlands, with their endless forests and frozen rivers, became the stage for a confrontation that seemed hopelessly one-sided. The Soviets, confident in their overwhelming numbers and firepower, believed the conquest would be swift. Their armies, equipped with tanks and artillery, prepared to roll across the border, expecting little resistance from the sparsely populated Finnish countryside. But Finland was not defenceless. The land itself was a fortress. Dense forests, frozen lakes, and deep snowdrifts formed natural barriers that no army could easily cross. The Finns, intimately familiar with every hill and hollow, prepared to use the terrain to their advantage. The Red Army advanced, columns of vehicles and men moving into the blinding white. But the snow was not their ally. Soviet tanks bogged down in drifts, engines freezing in the bitter cold. Supply trucks stalled, their cargoes stranded miles from the front. The weather was a weapon. Temperatures plunged to -40 degrees. Blizzards swept across the land, erasing tracks and blinding even the most experienced navigators. The Soviets, in their dark uniforms, stood out starkly against the endless white, easy targets for anyone who knew how to move unseen. The Finns, by contrast, became part of the landscape. Their white camouflage blended perfectly with the snow, but their greatest advantage was mobility. Where tanks and trucks faltered, skis glided effortlessly. Finnish troops could cover vast distances in silence, weaving through the trees, crossing frozen rivers, and vanishing before the enemy could react. Skis were more than just transportation. They were a strategic equalizer. Finnish ski patrols could strike quickly, ambushing Soviet columns, then melt away into the woods. The Soviets, unused to such tactics, found themselves surrounded and isolated, their larger numbers counting for little in the labyrinth of snow and trees. This was the essence of the David versus Goliath struggle. The Red Army, a giant in men and machines, was brought low by a smaller force that understood the land and the winter. The Finns used the environment as both shield and sword, turning every snowdrift and shadowed grove into a potential ambush. The conflict was not one of grand charges or open battles. It was a war of patience, cunning, and relentless harassment. The Finns perfected the art of the ambush, using the cover of snow and silence to strike and disappear. The Soviets, unable to adapt, suffered heavy losses in the cold and confusion. The world watched in astonishment as the tiny nation held its ground. The Red Army, expecting victory by Christmas, found itself mired in a nightmare of ice and resistance. The legend of the Finnish defenders grew. With every passing day, their courage and ingenuity turning the tide against impossible odds. In this frozen crucible, the strategic use of skis, the mastery of terrain, and the merciless winter became the true heroes of the story. The land itself fought alongside the Finns, and the legend of David versus Goliath was reborn, etched not in stone, but in snow and ice. In the heart of this struggle, the stage was set for individuals like Simo Häyhä to emerge, masters of the winter, invisible in the white and deadly in their precision. But above all, it was the land, the weather, and the ingenuity of a people on skis that defined this extraordinary chapter in history. Simo Häyhä's effectiveness wasn't just about his ability to hit a target. It was about his genius for not being seen, an art form honed in the harshest winter conditions where the smallest mistake could mean instant death. In winter warfare, invisibility is a science of blending in so completely that you become part of the landscape itself. Camouflage is not just about wearing white. It's about understanding how light, shadow, and texture work together in a snowy world. The first step is to break up any unnatural outlines. Equipment and positions are covered with snow, netting, or even branches, making them indistinguishable from the natural drifts and mounds that dot the frozen ground. Every edge is softened, every surface shaped to mimic the gentle curves left by the wind. Even the smallest detail, like a straight line or a sharp corner, can betray a hidden presence. Movement is the enemy of invisibility. In the open, even the slightest shift can catch the eye. The art is to move only when absolutely necessary, and then with painstaking slowness, using the terrain for cover and always keeping low to the ground. Nature itself becomes an ally. Fresh snowfall and wind can erase tracks and cover signs of activity, but only if you know how to use them. Timing movements with gusts of wind or during snowfall helps mask any disturbance. To avoid casting a telltale silhouette, snow is piled behind and around positions, blending them into the horizon. Shadows are minimized by choosing low ground and orienting with the sun, so that any darkness falls where it would naturally. Even the reflective quality of snow is considered. Surfaces are roughened or dusted with powder to prevent unnatural glints that could catch an observer's eye. In extreme cold, visible breath is a major giveaway. The solution is ingenious. Cooling the breath by exhaling through snow or into a gloved hand, or holding snow in the mouth so that vapor is minimized or eliminated entirely. The muzzle blast from a rifle can kick up a cloud of snow, revealing a hidden position. By pouring water in front of the barrel, a sniper creates a frozen patch that absorbs the blast, leaving no telltale puff. The firing position itself is a masterpiece of adaptation. A shallow depression is dug, just deep enough to conceal, and the excavated snow is used to build up the sides, always matching the natural contours of the land. Every trace of entry and exit is erased. Footprints are covered, and any disturbed snow is blended back into the environment, leaving no sign that anyone was ever there. The sniper's size and shape are minimized. A compact position means less shadow, less movement, and less chance of detection. The art is to become just another feature in a landscape of endless white. Patience is essential. Hours may pass without a single movement, as the environment itself slowly erases any evidence of presence. To the untrained eye, the winter battlefield is empty, just a frozen wasteland. But for those who master the art of invisibility, it is a world of opportunity where survival depends on blending in so perfectly that even the sharpest observer sees nothing at all. This is the meticulous scientific approach to winter camouflage and movement, an art where every detail matters, and where the environment is both a shield and a weapon. In the world of winter warfare, true invisibility is achieved not by hiding from nature, but by becoming a part of it. In an age when snipers rely on powerful telescopic sights, complex calculations, and advanced technology, the idea of winning a war with nothing but iron sights might seem almost unthinkable. Yet, the mechanics and mastery behind this approach reveal a world of technical skill and battlefield ingenuity. The Siko M2830 bolt-action rifle, equipped with standard iron sights, is a marvel of rugged simplicity. Its front post and rear notch are precisely machined, allowing for quick target acquisition and reliable alignment, even in the harshest conditions. Unlike scopes, which can fog, frost, or reflect sunlight, iron sights are immune to environmental failures. There is no glass to betray your position or delicate mechanism to freeze in the cold. The mechanics of the rifle itself are crucial. The smooth cycling of the bolt, the crisp break of the trigger, and the consistent ejection of spent cartridges all contribute to a shooter's ability to maintain rhythm and focus under pressure. Every component is designed for reliability, ensuring that the weapon functions flawlessly shot after shot, regardless of snow, ice, or mud. Aiming with iron sights is both an art and a science. The shooter must align the front post perfectly within the rear notch, centering it on the target. This requires not only sharp eyesight, but also a deep familiarity with the sight picture, how the sights appear against various backgrounds in shifting light and at different ranges. There is no magnification to aid the eye. Every detail must be judged by instinct and experience. At distances exceeding 400 meters, the challenge intensifies. The shooter must account for bullet drop, wind drift, and even the subtle effects of temperature and humidity on the round's trajectory. With no rangefinder or spotter, distance is estimated by eye, using landmarks and the known size of targets. Adjustments for elevation and windage are made by subtly shifting the point of aim, raising the front post for longer shots or holding off to one side to compensate for a crosswind. Battlefield improvisation is essential. In the absence of advanced optics, the shooter learns to use the environment to their advantage. Snowbanks become natural rests, providing stability for the rifle. Shadows and terrain features are used for concealment, while the low profile demanded by iron sights keeps the shooter hidden from enemy view. The lack of a scope means the rifle is lighter and more maneuverable, allowing for rapid repositioning and swift engagement of multiple targets. The process of zeroing the rifle is a technical ritual. The shooter sets the sights for a preferred range, often 150 meters, where the bullet's trajectory is flattest and most predictable. For targets beyond this distance, the shooter relies on muscle memory and countless hours of practice, adjusting aim instinctively to compensate for the arc of the bullet. Marksmanship with iron sights is pure skill. It demands a perfect understanding of ballistics, an ability to read the wind, and the discipline to control breathing and trigger pull. Every shot is a test of fundamentals. No technology to mask errors, no shortcuts to precision. The minimalist approach extends to equipment. A reliable rifle, a bandolier of ammunition, and a keen awareness of the battlefield are all that is needed. The shooter becomes a master of adaptation, using whatever is at hand to gain an edge, be it a patch of snow for camouflage or a gust of wind to mask the sound of a shot. In the end, winning a war with iron sights is a testament to the power of human skill and technical mastery. It is not the sophistication of the equipment that determines victory, but the expertise and ingenuity of the one who wields it. In the hands of a true marksman, even the simplest rifle becomes the most effective weapon on the battlefield. The numbers associated with Simo Häyhä's service in the Winter War are, to put it mildly, astonishing. But to truly understand the scale and significance of his achievements, we need to look beyond the raw figures and examine the context, the tactics, and the psychological impact that defined his legacy. The Winter War lasted for just over 100 days, from November 1939 to March 1940. In that brief, brutal window, Simo Häyhä was officially credited with 542 confirmed kills with his rifle, an average of more than 5 per day. These were not random shots. Each confirmed kill required precision, patience, and a deep understanding of the terrain. Simo used the dense forests and deep snow to his advantage, often constructing small snow mounds to conceal his position and muffle the sound of his rifle. His tally made him, by a huge margin, the most successful sniper in military history. For comparison, most top snipers in other conflicts rarely exceeded 100 confirmed kills. The Red Army became obsessed with eliminating him. They deployed counter-snipers, launched artillery barrages, and even altered their tactics to minimize exposure. Yet Simo remained elusive, his methods rooted in discipline and an almost superhuman ability to remain undetected. His most productive day was December 21st, 1939, when he recorded 25 confirmed kills in a single, bitterly cold day. The conditions were so harsh that even the act of breathing could give away a sniper's position. Yet Simo adapted by keeping snow in his mouth to mask his breath. The focus, stamina, and cold-blooded efficiency required to achieve such numbers are difficult to comprehend. Each shot was a product of hours of stillness, observation, and calculation. For the Soviet soldiers, the psychological impact was devastating. The knowledge that an invisible, nearly mythical sniper was picking off comrades at will created an atmosphere of constant fear and paranoia. The legend of the White Death spread rapidly through Soviet ranks. Units became hesitant to advance, and morale plummeted as the kill count grew. The mere mention of his nickname was enough to instill dread. On the Finnish side, Simo's exploits became a symbol of resistance and hope. His ability to hold back overwhelming numbers with skill and cunning was a morale booster for his fellow soldiers, and a point of national pride. Simo's contribution wasn't limited to sniping. As a squad leader, he also wielded the Suomi KP-31 submachine gun, one of the most effective weapons of the era. In close-quarters combat, he was credited with over 200 additional enemy casualties. When you add his sniper and submachine gun kills, his total confirmed count rises to well over 700. These numbers were meticulously recorded by his commanding officers, with each confirmed kill requiring a witness. The process was strict. A kill was only confirmed if witnessed by an officer or another soldier. It's likely that many more went unrecorded, lost in the chaos of battle. For Simo, however, it was never about the numbers. He saw himself as a soldier with a job to do, following orders with relentless efficiency. His own words later in life, "I did what I was ordered to do as well as I could," summed up his approach with chilling humility. Simo Häyhä was ordered to defend his country, and he did so with a level of skill, discipline, and psychological impact unmatched in military history. His red ledger is not just a record of kills, but a testament to the power of one determined individual to shape the course of a war. For over 3 months, Simo Häyhä was a ghost in the snow. unseen, untouchable, a legend whispered among the trees and the wind. He had survived everything the Red Army could unleash: artillery that shattered the silence, bullets that tore through the cold air, and the relentless pressure of an enemy determined to end his reign. He moved through the battlefield like a shadow, his presence marked only by the emptiness he left behind. But on March 6th, 1940, just a week before the war's end, fate intervened with brutal finality. In the chaos near the Kolar River, the air was thick with the thunder of battle, the snow churned by violence unseen. From across the frozen expanse, a Soviet rifle cracked, a single shot fired with deadly intent. This was no ordinary bullet. It was an explosive round designed to shatter not just bone but hope itself. The bullet struck with merciless precision. The explosion tore through the stillness, leaving devastation in its wake. It ripped through flesh and bone, shattering the very instrument of Simo's legend, his face. The force of the blast obliterated his jaw, leaving only ruin where there had once been resolve and focus. In the aftermath, the silence was broken only by the wind and the distant sounds of battle. Those who found him saw only a broken body, lifeless in the snow. The snow was painted with his blood, the ground bearing silent witness to the violence that had ended a legend. In the confusion, Simo was laid among the fallen, another casualty claimed by the merciless winter. The White Death, it seemed, had been silenced by the very violence he had mastered. But the story did not end in that frozen silence. Amid the stillness, a subtle movement, a leg twitching, a sign that life clung on against all odds. Simo was pulled from the heap, his breath shallow, his body battered but not yet surrendered to the cold. He had lost consciousness the moment the bullet struck, his mind slipping into darkness as his body fought to survive. He was carried through the biting cold to a field hospital, every jolt a fresh agony, every moment a battle for life. The hunter had become the hunted, his fate now in the hands of others, his war reduced to a struggle for breath. His war was over, but a new, more personal battle had begun, a fight for survival, for identity, for meaning beyond the rifle. He slipped into a coma, his body suspended between life and death for 7 long days. Doctors worked desperately, their efforts a race against time and the cold, uncertain if the man beneath the bandages would ever return. While Simo lay unconscious, the world outside changed. The guns fell silent, the war he had fought so fiercely in finally ending. The Winter War concluded with the signing of the Moscow Peace Treaty on March 13, 1940. On that very day, Simo Häyhä awoke from his coma, the world outside transformed, his own world forever altered. He awoke to a new reality, his country at peace, but his own battle just beginning. The face that had once been the terror of the winter woods was gone, and with it the life he had known. The legacy of the White Death would live on. But Simo Häyhä's war was over, and the scars, unseen and seen, would remain forever. Emerging from a coma into the stillness of a hospital room, Simo Häyhä faced a reality forever changed. The world outside continued, but for him, time seemed to slow, marked by the steady rhythm of medical machines and the distant hush of winter winds against the window. Each day began with the soft light of dawn filtering through frosted glass, the silence broken only by the footsteps of nurses and the quiet hum of life returning. Recovery was not just a matter of healing wounds, but of learning to live with pain, with scars, and with the memories of war. The days blurred together, hours spent in quiet reflection, the slow progress of physical therapy, and the endless patience required for recovery. Simo endured 26 operations, each one a step towards rebuilding not just his face, but his sense of self. Surgeons worked meticulously, grafting bone from his hip to reconstruct his jaw, their efforts a testament to human resilience and determination. The scars would remain, a permanent reminder of sacrifice and survival. Yet even as his body healed, Simo's spirit remained unbroken. In Finland his name became legend. his deeds during the Winter War spoken of in hushed, reverent tones. But for Simo, fame was a distant echo. His heart yearned for the peace of the forests and fields. When the war ended, Simo returned to the land that had shaped him. Each morning he rose with the sun, tending to his small farm, the scent of earth and pine filling the air. The routines were simple, feeding livestock, mending fences, gathering firewood for the long winter nights. In the evenings he would sit by the fire, the warmth a comfort against the cold outside. Sometimes he would walk the familiar trails through the forest, accompanied only by the distant call of an owl or the crunch of snow beneath his boots. Hunting became a way to reconnect with the land, a quiet pursuit that demanded patience and respect. Simo became known as a skilled moose hunter, his knowledge of the wilderness unmatched. He bred dogs, finding companionship in their loyalty and energy. He rarely spoke of the war, his actions, or the pain he endured. To his neighbours, he was a quiet, modest man, content with solitude, his days marked by the changing seasons and the steady work of rural life. Simo never married and had no children. His legacy was not in family, but in the land he tended and the peace he found in nature's embrace. For decades he lived in quiet obscurity, a living legend who asked for nothing but the simple joys of home. When asked late in life if he felt remorse for the men he had killed, his answer was as unadorned as the landscape he loved. I did what I was told to do, as well as I could. Simo Häyhä saw his actions as duty, necessary if painful, in defence of his home. He lived out his days in the serenity of the Finnish countryside, passing away in a war veterans' nursing home in 2002 at the age of 96. His legacy endures not only in the stories of war, but in the quiet strength of a man who found peace in the land he loved, and in the enduring silence of the forest that shaped him. What is the true legacy of Simo Häyhä? His story is more than a record of military achievement. It's a testament to the enduring power of skill, resilience, and humility. On the surface, Simo Häyhä's legacy is defined by numbers, a kill count that stands unmatched, a reputation as the deadliest sniper in history. But his influence reaches far beyond statistics. Around the world, military academies study his methods, his mastery of camouflage, his ability to read the land, and his preference for simple, reliable iron sights have become foundational lessons in marksmanship. Häyhä's story is a reminder that a single, highly skilled individual can shape the course of history, even when facing overwhelming odds. In the world of marksmanship, he is a legend, a ghost in the snow, whose presence is felt in every lesson on patience, precision, and discipline. Yet in Finland his legacy is woven into the very fabric of the nation. He embodies sisu, the uniquely Finnish spirit of courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. During the Winter War, as Finland fought for survival, Häyhä became a symbol of hope, a quiet force standing against a seemingly unstoppable foe. He was the farmer defending his homeland, using his wits and skills to protect what mattered most. His actions proved that the Red Army was not invincible and that the spirit of a determined defender could change the course of battle. But perhaps most remarkable was Häyhä's humility. In an age of self-promotion, he shunned the spotlight, never boasting of his deeds. He saw himself not as a hero, but as a man fulfilling his duty, quiet, unassuming, and steadfast. When asked about his secret, he answered simply, "Practice." He took no pleasure in killing, sought no glory, and returned to his peaceful life when the war was done. His story is not one of bloodlust, but of patriotism, a man who did what was necessary so that his country might endure. When asked if he regretted his actions, he reflected and said, "I did what I was ordered to do, as well as I could. There would be no Finland unless everyone else had done the same." His legacy is not just that of a warrior, but of a humble guardian, one who valued the collective effort above individual glory. The story of the White Death is a complex one, a tale of a lethal marksman, a national symbol, and ultimately a quiet farmer who longed for peace. Simo Häyhä's influence endures in every lesson on marksmanship, in every act of quiet courage, and in the spirit of a nation that remembers what it means to stand firm, even when the world seems cold and dark. The Winter War was fought not just between men, but against the elements themselves. In the forests of Finland, the landscape became a silent adversary, a vast frozen expanse where temperatures plunged as low as -40 degrees Celsius. The snow was deep and powdery, blanketing the ground in a muffling silence that could both conceal and betray. Visibility was limited, as thick pine forests and swirling snowstorms transformed the battlefield into a labyrinth of white and shadow. The cold was relentless, seeping into every layer of clothing, numbing fingers and slowing movements. Weapons malfunctioned, metal froze to bare skin, and even the simplest task became a test of endurance. But these harsh conditions were not just obstacles. They shaped every tactic, every decision, every confrontation. Finnish troops, including Simo Häyhä, adapted with ingenuity. They wore all-white camouflage, blending seamlessly with the snow. Their skis allowed for swift, silent movement across the terrain, giving them a speed and mobility the invading Red Army could not match. The dense forests broke up lines of sight, favouring small mobile units over large formations. The Finns used the land to their advantage, setting ambushes and disappearing without a trace. Even sound behaved differently in the cold, carrying farther and making stealth essential. For the Soviet forces, the environment was an unfamiliar and punishing foe. Heavy machinery bogged down in the snow, and troops struggled with inadequate winter gear. The cold blunted morale and made every advance a costly ordeal. In this frozen crucible, only those who understood and respected the land could hope to survive. For Simo Häyhä, the snow was both shield and weapon, a silent partner in his campaign. The Winter War's environmental conditions did not just shape tactics. They became the very fabric of the conflict, turning the forests of Finland into a battleground where nature itself decided who would endure and who would fall. The legend of Simo Häyhä did not vanish with the melting snow. Instead, his unique approach to sniping transformed the art of marksmanship for generations to come. In the years following the Winter War, military strategists and sharpshooters around the globe studied Häyhä's methods, seeking to understand how a single man could exert such outsized influence on the battlefield. Häyhä's tactics were rooted in simplicity, patience, and an intimate knowledge of his environment. He favoured iron sights over scopes, reducing the risk of sunlight reflection that could reveal his position. This technical choice, once viewed as rudimentary, inspired a re-evaluation of sniper gear and concealment techniques worldwide. Armies began to issue anti-reflective coatings for optics and developed low-profile scopes to minimize detection. Camouflage, too, evolved in Häyhä's wake. His use of all-white clothing set a new standard for seasonal adaptation. Modern sniper units adopted modular camouflage systems, ghillie suits and adaptive coverings, allowing marksmen to blend seamlessly with changing terrain, whether snowy tundra or dense forest. Movement became an art form. Häyhä's slow, deliberate crawling, sometimes advancing mere inches per hour, highlighted the value of patience over aggression. Today's snipers train extensively in stealth, using terrain features for cover, minimizing their silhouette and masking their scent and heat signature to evade thermal imaging. Ballistics and marksmanship also advanced. Häyhä's reliance on unscoped rifles emphasized the importance of understanding bullet trajectory, wind and distance without technological aids. This led to the development of rigorous fieldcraft training, ensuring that snipers could operate effectively even if technology failed. Perhaps most importantly, Häyhä demonstrated that the sniper's greatest weapon is the mind. Discipline, observation, and the ability to remain unseen became the foundation of modern sniper doctrine. From the forests of Finland to the deserts and mountains of today's conflicts, the echoes of Häyhä's innovation remain. His legacy endures not in statues or photographs, but in the silent, watchful eyes of every marksman who follows his path, shadows in the snow waiting for the perfect moment. In the frozen forests of Karelia, Simo Häyhä was more than a marksman. He was a phantom. His unseen presence haunted the Red Army, sowing fear with every silent shot. The psychological warfare waged by Häyhä was as potent as any bullet. Soviet soldiers spoke in hushed tones of the White Death, a name whispered with dread across icy trenches. Each casualty was not just a loss in numbers, but a blow to morale, a chilling reminder that no one was safe, not even the most vigilant. Commanders found their men reluctant to advance, paralyzed by the invisible threat lurking beyond the tree line. Stories of Häyhä's uncanny aim and ghost-like movement spread like wildfire, amplified by rumor and propaganda. The Soviets, unable to see their enemy, began firing blindly into the forest, wasting precious ammunition and energy. Every snowdrift became a potential hiding place, every shadow a source of terror. Finnish propaganda seized upon the legend, crafting Häyhä into a symbol of national resilience and defiance. Leaflets and radio broadcasts spoke of the White Death's exploits, bolstering the spirits of Finnish troops and civilians alike. In the minds of friend and foe, Häyhä became larger than life, a solitary figure capable of turning the tide of war through sheer will and skill. This invisible grip on the battlefield endures in modern warfare. The psychological edge, fear, uncertainty, and doubt remains a crucial weapon in the sniper's arsenal. Today, the mere rumor of a skilled marksman can halt an enemy advance, disrupt supply lines, and fracture unit cohesion. Simo Häyhä's legacy is not just measured in confirmed kills, but in the lasting impact of fear, the silent force that shapes every conflict from the shadows. In the unforgiving expanse of the Winter War, survival demanded more than courage, it required innovation. As snow blanketed the Finnish forests, both sides raced to adapt their technology to the biting cold and blinding white. The Finnish marksmen, including Simo Häyhä, relied on the rugged Mosin-Nagant M28/30 rifle. Its simple iron sights, preferred by Häyhä over scopes, were less likely to fog or reflect sunlight, a crucial advantage in the shimmering snowfields. Every weapon was tested against the elements, wrapped in cloth to prevent freezing metal from betraying a sniper's position with a glint or a click. Camouflage became an art of necessity. While Soviet troops struggled in dark uniforms that stood out against the snow, Finnish soldiers donned simple white smocks, blending seamlessly into their surroundings. Even their rifles were camouflaged, painted white or covered in fabric, to erase any hint of movement. But it wasn't just about what could be seen. Finnish ingenuity extended to sound and scent. Snipers packed snow in front of their firing positions to muffle shots, and kept snow in their mouths to conceal their breath in the icy air. Trenches and foxholes were dug with care, always mindful of leaving no trace. Meanwhile, the Soviets introduced new weaponry, semi-automatic rifles and armoured vehicles, but found them prone to malfunction in the deep freeze. Lubricants thickened, bolts jammed, and engines stalled, turning technological superiority into a liability. In this frozen duel, every advancement, no matter how small, could tip the balance between life and death. The Winter War became a proving ground for cold-weather warfare, where innovation was as vital as marksmanship, and the tools of survival were forged in ice and fire. Beneath the relentless Arctic sky, the natural world became both shield and sword. The Finnish front was a labyrinth of dense pine forests, frozen lakes, and rolling hills buried deep beneath snowdrifts. Each tree, each icy river was a silent participant in the Winter War's deadly dance. Endless forests offered concealment for the defenders, natural camouflage that swallowed up entire battalions. Snipers like Simo Häyhä didn't just hide in the landscape, they became a part of it. Shadows flickered between ancient trunks, footprints vanished beneath fresh snowfall. Frozen lakes, treacherous and unpredictable, acted as both barriers and highways. For the Finns, who knew the land intimately. These icy expanses were escape routes and ambush points. For Soviet forces, they were minefields. Cracking ice and hidden traps turned every advance into a gamble. Snow itself became a weapon. It muffled sound, concealed movements, and swallowed up equipment. Blizzards could erase an army's tracks within minutes, leaving only silence behind. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees, freezing engines and numbing fingers, grinding offensives to a halt. The landscape shaped every tactic, every skirmish. Hills and ridges provided high ground for marksmen, while dense undergrowth offered ambush sites for small squads. Even the shortest path could become deadly, as natural obstacles forced armies to split, slow down, and face the elements as much as the enemy. In the Winter War, nature was no passive backdrop. It was a living, shifting force, an unyielding fortress that favored the patient, the prepared, and the invisible. The battle was not just against an invading army, but against the very land itself, where survival depended on respecting, understanding, and mastering the frozen wilds. Long after the last shot echoed through the forests of Karelia, the lessons of the Winter War continued to ripple across the strategies of armies worldwide. In military academies and field manuals, the conflict became a case study in asymmetric warfare, where agility, adaptation, and terrain mastery could defy overwhelming odds. The tactics pioneered by Finnish fighters and embodied by snipers like Simo Häyhä became templates for future generations. The art of camouflage, silent movement, and patient marksmanship, once the domain of hunters, evolved into the doctrine of modern special forces and sniper schools. Häyhä's minimalist approach, using iron sights and simple equipment, proved that technology alone does not guarantee victory. Instead, it's the perfect fusion of skill, discipline, and environment that shapes a true marksman. Today, militaries around the world train snipers to become invisible, blending into their surroundings, reading the landscape, and striking with precision. The Finnish concept of sisu, unyielding resilience, infuses not just national spirit but modern military ethos. Small unit tactics, mobility over brute force, and the intelligent use of terrain are now core principles in conflicts from snowy mountains to urban jungles. The Winter War's legacy is not found in monuments or medals, but in doctrines, drills, and the silent confidence of soldiers who know that victory can come from patience, preparation, and the wisdom to let the land be your ally. In every quiet breath behind a scope, in every footprint erased by falling snow, the ghost of the White Death and the spirit of the Winter War live on, reminding the world that sometimes the coldest battles teach the warmest lessons in survival and strategy. In Finland, the legend of Simo Häyhä endures far beyond the battlefield, woven into the fabric of national identity and cultural memory. His story, once whispered among soldiers in frozen trenches, has become a touchstone for resilience, humility, and the quiet courage found in the face of impossible odds. In literature, Häyhä's legacy is immortalized in memoirs, novels, and poems, each retelling painting him less as a harbinger of death and more as a symbol of steadfast spirit. Finnish authors have explored not just his marksmanship but his humanity. A farmer who became a protector, a man who preferred the silence of the forest to the sound of applause. Artists too have captured the essence of the White Death. In galleries and public spaces, paintings and sculptures evoke the stark beauty of snowbound forests, the watchful eyes behind a white mask, and the solitary figure blending into the landscape. These works rarely show Häyhä's face. Instead, they render him as a silhouette in the mist, a whisper in the birch trees, a shadow moving across endless white. Commemoration takes many forms. In museums, his rifle and uniform are displayed behind glass, humble tools that shaped history. Memorial plaques and quiet ceremonies mark the places where he made his stand, honouring not only his skill but the spirit of all who defended their homeland. Across Finland, the name Simo Häyhä is spoken with a mix of awe and affection. his memory serving as a silent sentinel, reminding new generations that greatness often wears the cloak of humility. Through art, literature, and ritual, Finland keeps the story of the White Death alive, not as a tale of war, but as a living lesson in perseverance, ingenuity, and the enduring power of the human spirit beneath the snow.